This year, to create less waste in my home, I've been trying to use up some of the craft supplies that I already have on hand rather than going out and buying new ones. Now, these two totes here are two totes of Christmas things that I've been hanging on to for far too long. Most of these things came from the Dollar Tree, and most of these things are still available now, even though a lot of them I bought a few years ago. Now, here's the thing. Christmas is right around the corner and I don't have a lot of time to craft. I'm sure you don't either. So these crafts are going to be super quick and super simple, and I'm sure you'll be able to use up some of the things you already have on hand too. If you're excited to use up some of your crafting stash, then make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. I don't know why, but for some reason I had a ton of these mini Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree in my Christmas craft stash, so I thought I'd create a fun, quick centerpiece. Now, these galvanized buckets, they always seem to have those at the Dollar Tree, and they've had them around for several years, but if you don't have one on hand, just use any container you'd like. I'm using 2 of the white Christmas trees, a pack of the smallest ornaments that you can find from the Dollar Tree, some pom-poms, and some Christmas ribbon. All things that I'm trying to get rid of out of my stash. The Dollar Tree Christmas trees are pretty flimsy and pretty sparse on their own, but they're easy to put together, so I usually like to double them up. I start by taking the bottom cap off. I'm not going to need that or the legs that come with the trees, and I start fanning out the branches just to the side to get started. Once I have both of my trees with the branches fanned out to the sides, then since this is a white Christmas tree, I'm going to use some white pipe cleaners, and that's how I'm going to attach the 2 trees together. So I just ran a couple pipe cleaners along the stem of the 2 trees and gave them a little twist. They blended right in with the white stems from the Christmas trees. Then I was able to fan the branches out on either side to make a much fuller looking Christmas tree than just one by itself. Also, keep this in mind, if you don't have any of these white Christmas trees, you might want to pick up a couple for the upcoming holidays, because since this is a white neutral base, you could create something like this and use it for Valentine's Day and then even Easter as well. You could decorate it with pastels and with red and green or red and pink hearts for Valentine's Day. So this is a great base to work with, but for today, I'm just decorating it for Christmas. The mini packs of ornaments from the Dollar Tree do come with thread, so you could actually hang these, but because they are so small and because the branches are still a little bit sparse on these trees, I thought it would be easier just to hot glue the ornaments right into the tree, and then that way I was able to tuck them in between the branches and in any of the spots that I needed to fill in. Now, I like this tree just with the silver ornaments, but I thought it would be cute to add a little bit more red and green, especially because the ribbon I'm going to be using has some red and green on it too. So that's where the pom-poms came in. I just did the same thing. I just used some hot glue, and I started with the biggest pom-poms and I hot glued those around the tree and then worked my way down to some of the smaller pom-poms. For the top of my tree, I just took that candy cane striped ribbon, I looped it around about 3 times, tied it in the middle, and I hot glued that right to the top. Now, if you wanted to, you could decorate the galvanized tin as well. I chose not to. I just added a little bit of floral foam into the bottom so that I could stick my Christmas trees right in. If you wanted to get a little fancier, you could even add some fairy lights. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've been really trying to create less waste in my home. Today's video is sponsored by Earthbreeze, and I'm so excited to share them with you because this is one of those everyday swaps that truly makes a difference. Earthbreeze laundry detergent comes in these super lightweight detergent sheets that are free from harsh chemicals like optical brighteners, dyes, parabens, phosphates, and preservatives. So it's a much gentler choice for your clothes and your home. A lot of traditional detergents use optical brighteners, and those are actually chemicals that stick to your clothes and can even be seen glowing under a black light. Because they stay on the fabric, they can irritate skin and even cause allergic reactions for some people. I really love that Earthbreeze skips all of that unnecessary stuff. They're also eco-friendly. There's no big heavy plastic jug, so no mess. Now this is in real time. I have to show you this. Watch how fast this sheet dissolves in water. I was so impressed with how quickly and completely it disappeared. There's no residue, no clumps, just clean, ready to go detergent. Each sheet is pre-measured for an average load, which makes laundry so simple. You can tear one in half for smaller loads, or you can use 2 sheets for extra large or heavily soiled loads. No measuring, no mess, just toss it in and go. Right now, you can try EarthBreeze for up to 40% off plus 4 free gifts at earthbreeze.com/gluelala, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. If you're looking for a cleaner, easier way to do laundry, I definitely recommend checking out EarthBreeze. Grapevine wreaths are one of my favorite wreath forms to work with because I just think the texture is so interesting and pretty. These are things that you can usually find at the thrift store, and don't worry if they're already decorated. You can usually pull off the previous decorations, and even if there is a little bit of glue left over, if you have a blow dryer or a heat gun, you can heat it up and wipe most of it off, or just let it kind of drip down into the vines and you won't see it, and you can cover it up with things later. I'm also going to use 2 bunches of poinsettias and some ribbon, and then I'll throw in a little Christmas ornament at the end. These poinsettia stems are nice and full, and they have some nice leaves on them too. So the only thing I'm going to do to these is cut off most of the excess stem. I want all of the stems to still stay together, but I don't need that long of a stem at the bottom. So I'm just using my wire cutters and I'm bending it back and forth until I got the bulk of that stem off of my flowers. Then I started bending the bottom of my bunches just a little bit so it would fit with the natural curve of the grapevine wreath. And I wanted to make sure that they were fairly close together so that I had some poinsettias sticking out from the bottom and from the top with not a big gap in between. And because these do have those nice full green leaves on them, it was able to hide the wire stems that were inside of the flower picks. Then rather than gluing these onto my wreath form, I'm just using some floral wire. You could also use some jute rope, or you could use some zip ties too, whatever is the easiest, but you don't need to use glue because you just want it to be on there temporarily because you'll be able to redecorate this later for different holidays and different seasons. So I'm just adding 3 pieces of my wire to mine, one in the center and one at the top and one at the bottom. Now here's where you can kind of make this wreath your own. If you want to take the time to create a really big, fluffy, fancy bow with different ribbons, you could definitely do that. I didn't want to take the time to do that today, so I'm creating just essentially a bunch of loops because it's kind of going to be the background for a Christmas ornament. I laid my ruler down and I put my ribbon down. I measured about 10 inches over and I looped that around until I had about 3 loops on each side. And then I did cut a second piece to act as the tails for my bow. I folded everything in half so that I knew where the center was. I cut a notch on each side, and this is what I'll slide my jute cord into so that I can tie everything together. If you're new to crafting or bow making, this is a great place to start so that you can practice out a bow. This is going to be a really simple one. There's just going to be 6 loops, but you could go on to make this into a bigger bow by adding in 2 or 3 different ribbons. It always works better if you have ribbons that are different widths. So this one is about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches wide, and it would look really great layered with, say, a 2-inch ribbon. You would just do the same thing again, cut the loops so that they were just a little bit bigger than the first set, fold it in half and cut a notch on each side, and then either use some jute cord, a pipe cleaner, or a zip tie around the middle, just cinch it, and then you can start playing with the loops, like pulling them out and fluffing them around until you have a nice big fluffy bow. But like I said, this is going to be more of just a background. I want it to look like a bow, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I am going to be adding something to the center. And when I added my jute cord to my bow, I made sure that I had enough length wreath on the tails that I could just place it in between those two bunches of the poinsettias and tie it on the back. After I had my bow tied onto my wreath, then I wanted to add just one Christmas ornament in the center for an extra little element of decoration. I had this cute little owl in my Christmas stash. I cut the topper off. I didn't need the loop that was at the top, but I needed a way to add it to my wreath. So along the back side, I added just a small amount of hot glue and a pretty long piece of jute rope. Now this blended in pretty well, but I wanted to make sure that it was nice and secure. So over top of where I glued that jute rope on, I did add a piece of ribbon just to make sure that it was held in place. Then I was able to nestle my little owl in between the loops of the bow that I created, and then using that jute cord, I just tied it on the back. If you have a fireplace or a coffee bar or a bookshelf, that's a great place to add just a little bit of extra decoration by adding a simple garland. I had an open pack of these wooden snowflake ornaments from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to dress those up with some sticky back pearls. And then I also had a few packs of these cinnamon sticks. This will be a great second element for my garland, and it'll make the room smell just a little bit nicer. Then I'm going to embellish everything with some ribbon and some pom-poms. I'm not going to need the hole at the top of this snowflake, so that's why I wanted to use the sticky back pearls to cover that up. And originally I was just going to put two on, one right across from where the hole was, but then I thought, what the heck, I have a whole pack here, I may as well just really decorate it up. So I ended up adding a pearl to each stem of the snowflake, and then I also added one to the center. Now you probably noticed I didn't paint or stain these snowflakes to save a little bit of time. Plus, I really like the color of the natural wood compared to the natural color of the cinnamon sticks. But feel free to customize this to fit your decor. Then moving on to the second element of my garland, I'm taking two of the cinnamon sticks and adding just a little bit of hot glue so that they'll stay together. I'm using some of this Christmas striped ribbon, and I'm tying it around the bundle of the two cinnamon sticks, and then just cutting the ends of the ribbon off at an angle. So it kind of looks like a little bundle of firewood maybe, but I really like the look of the cinnamon sticks, and I like the texture it gave. Then just to dress it up a bit more, I did add a pom-pom to the center of the bow. It's pretty straightforward here to finish off the garland. I just cut a piece of rope that would fit across the front of my electric fireplace. I found the center, and then I just started gluing on each of my things. So for the snowflakes, I added a little bit of hot glue to the back side, and I laid the rope into it. Anytime I'm making a garland like this, I always find it's easier to lay the rope into the back side of the thing rather than trying to glue whatever it is I'm using to the front side of the rope. I hope that kind of makes sense. And then I just kind of eyeballed the spacing on this. I wasn't too particular. I just wanted to get a bit of an even spacing. So I started with the snowflake in the center, and I did a cinnamon bundle on each side. And I just worked my way out from the center to make sure that my spacing was about even on both sides. Now I know I'm making this into a garland, but you could also keep both of these things in mind. These would make really great packaging ideas. So if you want to dress up some of the gifts that you're giving this Christmas, you could make each of these elements separate, and rather than adding them to a garland, you could just tie a little string on them and then tie them to a gift that you're giving to someone. If you've been hanging out with me for a while, you know I love to cover books and put them on display for the different holidays and seasons. It's a really quick craft. It's a great way to add some color to whatever room you want to decorate up. There's a bunch of different ways you can cover these books. Today I'm going to be using some fabric that I had on hand, and then I'll decorate it with just a little bit of ribbon. Now it's up to you how many books you want to do. I usually either stack up 2 or 3, and sometimes I've used books of different sizes. Today I'm just going to do 2 books, and they're both the same size. Now, if you don't want to go out and buy books, you could use some that you already have around your house. Just take the dust jacket off, and then you can replace it the next time you'd like to read it. There's not going to be any glue or anything involved in this, so you won't damage the book. I am going to use a little bit of clear tape on the inside just to hold that fabric in place. To give the fabric just a bit of interest, I am cutting the edges with pinking shears, but you could do this with just regular scissors. I folded the fabric in half, and then I'm just running the pinking shears along one end, laying my book down to get an idea of how tall I need my fabric to be. In order to get a cleaner cut, I did lay down a piece of painter's tape, and this was what I used as my guide so that I knew how high I needed my fabric to be. Now, while you're watching me cut this out, I thought I'd just be a little chatty for once. I haven't really been posting as often lately, and some of you have reached out and, just checked on me and everything. And I just wanted to get a little chatty and let you know what has been going on. Nothing major. I've just been having some issues with a pinched nerve in my neck and in my shoulder. And a lot of you know that I do work full time outside of YouTube. I am a hairdresser, and I've been doing hair for almost 28 years now. So sometimes these things kind of take a toll, the repetitive motion of shampoo and blow drying and all that. And so what I found is that when I'm sitting at a desk, when I'm crafting or when I'm editing videos, the pinched nerve has really, really been bothering me. So I've had to kind of step back from YouTube a little bit and take a break. It's not that I don't want to. I really miss crafting, and I really do enjoy editing videos and, doing these voiceovers and such. But it's just been really uncomfortable for me to sit at a desk to do all of that. And unfortunately, I don't have the type of craft desk, that rises up so that you can stand while you're crafting. Sometimes I do stand, but because it's a low desk, it gets a little uncomfortable too. And when I'm editing, I have to sit at a desk. I'm not able to stand up. So that's just something that I've been kind of dealing with. And that's the reason that I haven't been posting as many videos lately. But I do appreciate everybody who's reached out to me on Instagram and whatnot, just to, see if I'm doing okay and stuff. And I really do appreciate that. And I really miss hanging out with you guys. I miss crafting and making stuff, especially this time of year. I love Christmas crafting. So it's been kind of a bummer that I haven't been able to do as much of it as I'd like to. But hopefully, I'll get healed up here soon and I can start the new year out better, and I'll get to back to my regular crafting and YouTubing schedule. Now, back to the books here. That was pretty self-explanatory. You can see I just covered the two books in two coordinating fabrics. And to save time, rather than messing with a big fancy bow, I just took one wide piece of ribbon, tied it around both books, gave it a double knot, and then I dovetailed the end to make it look a little bit fancier. And it was a lot less work than trying to fluff out a big bow. Bead garlands are one of my favorite things to create. They're so easy, and you can make them any length that you need. Now, I always try to make a wood bead garland that is just a little bit different. I've made a ton of them on my channel, but I thought this one would be fun for Christmas. I'm just going to use some red and white wooden beads, and instead of putting tassels on either end of my garland, I'm going to be using these really big jingle bells that I got from the Dollar Tree. Now, anytime I like to do a wood bead garland, I like to take some thinner jute cord and I put a little bit of hot glue on the ends, let it cool for a couple seconds, roll it between my fingers, and then that way I have a little bit of a sharper edge that makes it easier to string things through. Now, before I glued my two ends together, I did string my jingle bell on first, and then I just went to work stringing on my beads. And like I said, you can make this any length you'd like. I'm making this one a little bit shorter because I just want to drape it around the base of a Christmas tree that I have, but this also works good to drape around a candle, or you could put it on a coffee bar, anywhere you just want to dress something up. Once I had it to the length that I like, I cut the two ends off, I strung it through a second jingle bell and tied it in a knot. You could decorate this any way you'd like. I'm trying to keep things simple and quick, so I just tied some simple bows out of the same jute cord and hot glued them right to the tops of my jingle bells. Thank you again to Earth Breeze for sponsoring this video. Make sure you follow the link down in the description below or scan the QR code on the screen to receive up to 40% off plus 4 free gifts. Thanks so much for coming to spend some time with me again today. Let me know how all of your Christmas crafting and planning is going on. All right, everyone, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you in the next one.